What's going on, YouTube? Thanks again for joining me. If you could just like, subscribe, maybe even share the video, I would appreciate that very much. It would really help my channel out going forward. So without further ado, we're going to be going over what you need to do in order to prep yourself for week 4 of Lambda School. Stay tuned.
Maybe I don't understand it. You're changing, I can't stand it. My heart can't take this damage.
Alright, so welcome back. So for week 4 of Lambda School, a little bit of savagery. So the first half of the week was great. Everything went awesome. Now what we learned was applied JavaScript. If you don't know what that means, it's a lot of query selectors. Pretty much taking things from a JSON file and then putting it into the actual DOM itself. So you have 2 versions of JavaScript. Normally people have to get through the first half before they can get to the second half, and the first half can kind of make or break a lot of people. People will spend months, weeks, just trying to figure out some of the basic fundamentals of JavaScript when they're learning that. The first half usually is all just the fundamentals such as data types, variables, if statements, a lot of algorithm stuff. And so a lot of people have a hard time just kind of wrapping their minds around it. And honestly, to me, it wasn't that simple. I also struggled with it. I almost gave up until I found Team Treehouse and went into their website, and that's where I spent a lot of my time. If you actually look into my GitHub, there's this big old empty space there where I completely dedicated myself to Team Treehouse and treated it like it was a college course, took notes, reviewed those notes, kind of went back over things, I did projects like if that was an exam, just to apply the stuff I was learning to make sure that I was learning it, because I was struggling with it. So it's not that easy. To me, it's very hard, and it's kind of like a gateway before you can get to the actual fun stuff. But you need to know all that stuff, not just for job interviews and things like that, but because you're going to actually apply it later on. And so that's what we did. We got to the portion where we actually got to apply it. Now, mind you, the more JavaScript that you know, a lot of times they're going to teach you all the stuff that's in ES5. Once you start moving to ES6, a lot of those, they don't go away per se, but they kind of morph into something different, such as you're used to doing a lot of for loops, and for loops are still great and they're still amazing even in ES6. However, you have certain functions that will make that a little bit easier. And so instead of doing a for loop, start looking into doing higher order functions. So you have your for each, you have your map, you have filter, you got a few others that are within that realm. Just find out what those do, and you'll have a lot easier time in week 3 and in some parts of week 4, and probably moving all the way forward. So very useful. Now what we learned the first half of the week was the applied portion where we kind of just messed with the DOM a lot. We built the website completely based off of the information on that JSON file I was telling you guys about. The HTML file itself was just empty divs, sections, H1s, P tags, image tags, and we had to fill that in ourselves without actually going into the HTML and writing anything. So it was pretty much cut and dry. You get the information from here, use a query selector to grab it, and then put it in there. And in some cases, if you want to add something new yourself, you had to create it, So really interesting, very fun project. And sorry about the mowing in the background. My wife got a little bit excited about it and she wanted to cut the grass, so you might hear that a little bit, so sorry about that. But moving forward after that, we ended up going into components. And so components was a different mentality that it takes. What it is you're used to trying to build things in nice little sections and and just moving on. Now what components usually is, it involves the HTML, the CSS, and the JavaScript all being built specifically for one component, one little section, one module, whatever you want to call it, such as your navigation. If your navigation bar will usually have its own folder with its own files in it with all the CSS or less or whatever you're using, or Sass, and it'll have the JavaScript in it and everything in it. Everything is specifically for that navigation bar. And the reason for that is so that, one, if there's a bug, it's a lot easier to find. You can, if you see something's wrong with the navigation bar, you already know where to go. It has its own folder. You can reuse that code. It doesn't matter how much stuff you add to it, it'll always go for that navigation bar. So Thursday was kind of a little bit of a struggle for me to get used to a lot of all that, because everything's getting put into classes. It's already built into the HTML, and then from there we're kind of just putting it all into those classes, and we're adding methods and functions and everything through there. We're looping through everything through those classes. And then on Friday we ended up getting hit with another bump. So we had the data structures that were added to it, and it was just kind of weird just having to go into the data attributes and kind of just pull it from there, and how you pull it, and messing with that information. So still some stuff that we ended up having to wrap our brains around, and there wasn't a lot of information on it, not just on the training kit, but also on the just on the internet in general. So really hard to wrap your brain around it, but we ended up getting through it. We ended up going into the after hours and asking the PM questions, and getting with them over that, because I mean it was really weird concept, so it was kind of a little bit of a bump in the road. But the first website that we built on Thursday was a Lambda news feed. Real cool site. Very easy, simple thing to wrap your head around, which was you have articles, and from that article you have a little button that expands the articles, and you also have a navigation bar. They want you to animate it and have it come out a little bit. And we were also told about GreenSock, just to do some extra animation if we wanted to. So got to use GreenSock. Really fun tool, very simple to use. Some of the stuff on there kind of confused some people. I didn't really find it too troublesome, but I'm personally used to using the frameworks and libraries, just kind of testing a lot of stuff out. So it wasn't that bad. I think I probably watched like the first 30 seconds of the video and then realized that was all you really need to know for the most part. And then the rest of it was in the docs. And so I just went through the docs for whatever I needed. But the next website is this one that you actually see behind me, and that's kind of like a Lambda newsletter. And what that is initially you start off with a bunch of buttons up here, and they work like a filter system. So when you click a button, something pops up, such as if you hit all, then all the articles come up. If you hit JavaScript, then everything that's tagged as JavaScript comes up. jQuery, same thing. So you filter through everything to pop up the ones that coincide with that button. So a filter system. And then from there you have a carousel that you don't really have to build as part of the project. It's a stretch. Now, if you're confused about the stretch, every project that you do will have the basic project, pretty much the things that they covered, things that they want you to know. And then the stretch are things that, in case you complete the main project with enough time, or even if you complete it and you ran out of time and you want to dive even deeper, you can do the stretches for extra points and complete those, submit them and everything, and you'll get an extra point. Your grading scale will go from 1 to 3. You only need a 2 in order to pass. That shows that you showed not mastery, but that you understand the subject that was taught. So you don't really need to do the stretch. However, it's always recommended that you do the stretch, because the stretch goals are usually things that they didn't necessarily teach, and so you end up having to go out and research a lot of stuff on your own. So that's part of the fun of being a developer. So that's what you really need to look into for week 4 in order to get comfortable with it. Anything that has to do with applied JavaScript, go for it. So if you got any questions or anything, just let me know down below. This week we're actually going to be going over project week, the entire week. So no lectures or anything like that. We're going to have meetings, but for the most part we're going to be set off on our own to complete this project, which is pretty much a full website from the applied JavaScript section. So using HTML, CSS, JavaScript, less, just about everything that we learned, components, everything. So the entire week. So if you guys have any questions about that, let me know, and I'll do the best I can to answer the questions for you. If not, then I will try to find somebody that can, and we'll move forward from there. See you guys next time.